to another video. In this video I will be discussing the process of natural childbirth. In the era of women in the Dark Ages, oftentimes it was the crucifixion of the woman to give birth at that particular point. And the idea of a childbirth being the crucifixion of the woman, where she gives her life for the innocent. Many women, or most women, would die from giving childbirth in medieval times, and that was as a result of specifically the positioning that which they put the women in to give childbirth. In other cultures, we see women particularly squatting or delivering in a squatted position in water, because gravity works with you at that particular point. It's pulling the child just as much as you're pushing. But now we see the rise of a particular king, which I do not remember this particular king, but I do believe it was King Louis himself, whom changed the position, and he asked for every child to be born in his kingdom to be delivered in his presence, because he enjoyed seeing the torture women would go through as they delivered childbirth. And he found that by putting them on their backs, laying flat, they now didn't have the same way to use gravity with them to push. But now gravity became a point where it became more painful for the child to come out more easily, where now you actually have to utilize a person to pull the child rather than the gravity itself, or God giving birth to that child. Now, in the act of natural birth, which we no longer see in today's modern world, they actively recommend cesarean sections, C-sections, which changes the development of children, because they do not receive the same level of consciousness upon their first breath. They do not recognize when they are finally born anymore. And so now they actually found that children born in cesarean sections actually have to be stimulated to be awakened, because they don't go through the constrictions that as they go through the canal of the woman. As they go through the canal, these constrictions are not awakening the child as he is being born, which once he is out, or she, they would then take their first breath. We're now seeing in cesarean sections that children actively have to be stimulated by being squeezed awake, essentially, or gently sprinkled awake as we massage their feet. But in terms of brain development, where do we see a change in neurological patterns through natural childbirth? Well, for one, a newborn baby's skull, its cranium, is not fused, which means it's malleable in the birth canal, which most newborn babies, or all newborn babies that were born of a natural birth process, would have actually experienced a slightly elongation in the rear of their cranium, because the skull would essentially be squeezed to exit more easily. And this squeezing of the skull, the creation of a mild elongation, generated a more deeply rooted experience at the depth of the basal ganglia. Because now you see that this squeezing created a expansion already within the neurological development of the child. You had created a greater mass of the brain by squeezing it into an expansion, which now you see that there is a rise in cesarean section babies. We see now autism, a disconnect of the world, which most children that are born through cesarean sections are actually experience a slight spectrum of autism. Whether that be through the deliberate process itself of the disconnect of not being born through the natural process where you experience the oxytocin release as you're still connected to the mother and she holds you for the first time in her arms, which it would then cut the umbilical cord as the last bit of stem cells release through the umbilical cord and now create the child's immune system now that he is out. Because you see, now that we cut children off the umbilical cord prior to them being able to experience the outside world for a slight bit of time, as the last remaining bits of the stem cells from the afterbirth are still being processed and delivered through the umbilical cord, as that child is adapting now to the outside environment for the first time, you see these stem cells would essentially create that child's immune system in its new adaptation. We now see in cesarean sections, the moment the child is born, we cut the umbilical cord immediately before the last remainder of stem cells enters the child's body in its adaptation to the new outside world. And we then use those umbilical cords to sell them off for stem cell research or for these celebrities to essentially stay young forever. In terms of the actual effects of what those stem cells would have done, well, you could say in older times we would have not needed vaccines because we would have had these stem cells as a result of the afterbirth and the adaptation of letting the child accustom itself to the external atmosphere, while the stem cells generate all of a sudden these new adaptations of the external world, which it is no longer within the internal world of the mother's womb. We are no longer delivering children the way they're supposed to be born. And this, as a result, has created a huge dysfunction in our societies because we have found a way to essentially make business on life. And so the medical world might seem as a beautiful practice to some of you, but you do not realize that it is still a practice ongoing, which they are making money as they test their drugs onto the people. And then we as the test subjects get to essentially tell you how these drugs make us feel. Which then you go, well, based on those feelings, I can take those and make those change into this. And based on those, I'm going to take those and turn them into that until you are basically nothing but a rat. We are actively degenerating humans in our modern day evolution. And I'm here to tell you that we still have a beauty of a path, as I might be one of the last few children of the Western civilization that was still born of a natural birth. And because of this, once I came to life, I was then different. And now you see in my arrival in this particular day and age where you see the depth change in the ability that I may experience consciousness is slightly different than the rest of the what would be perceivable as normal. Now, It's time we give birth to children again, the way we were meant to. Squatted in water, where they may swim up if they wish to reach their first breath. Once they awaken underwater during the squeezing. In some legends it is said that some children born in the sea, the contractions would synchronize with the waves or the current of the water approaching the sound. And through these rhythmic contractions and the water creating the relaxation of the mother, creating a more easier birthing process. And an extremely romantic way of being born. But anyways, folks, thank you for watching. Till next time.